Welcome to 40 Below Zero, an international podcast about life with invisible illnesses, hosted by two guys living with multiple sclerosis. Coming to you from the Keystone State of Pennsylvania, I'm your co-host Nix, and with me on this ride is Terry, a Londoner who calls Ontario home. We're so happy you're here with us as we continue to try and normalize a life that is anything but. So let's get into it. Welcome back, Warriors, to the show. My friend Terry, are you surviving this heat? Because I'm certainly not.
Oh man, I'm embracing my inner superhero and battling the life challenges like a boss. And no, I'm not dealing with the heat.
No, I'm
I,
I'm very worried that I'm going to be working myself into a flare-up really soon.
dude, the heat is knocking me down. I won't lie to you. The struggles with the heat, and you understand completely, man.
Absolutely. So
And
tell us about our guest.
I don't think it's just the humidity, just so you know, because I used to think it was humidity, but the sun hits me, man. I get zonked.
Oh, dude, the same. I'm absolutely the
hmm
same. Who
Okay.
do we got with us today?
So, man, I am so excited because first of all, I'm so grateful that I made this connection. So I went to a webinar about 2 months ago. I went to a zebrafish neuro webinar hosted by Steph and Barry. I don't know. Do you remember zebrafish? I went to Edmonton to be their demo model
Yep.
at
We
the
did a whole
Rio
thing about your
facility.
flight and all that stuff.
That's right. Here we go. I know
Yes,
Dr.
Terry.
Taylor. So at this webinar, I met Dr. Taylor, a doctor of physical therapy. Dude,
Yeah.
I was so happy she considered, yet alone she's joining us for an episode today. But here's the best
Yay.
part about this. I didn't know she worked in an MS clinic for 6 years.
Mhm.
Dude, so much more grateful. Dr. Taylor Galmarini. Nice to see you again. Did I butcher your name? I hope I didn't.
Oh, perfectly. Honestly, most people see that it's more than 5 letters and they completely zonk out and just
Awesome.
wave the white flag. But no, you did exceptionally well. Thank you.
Awesome. And it's really hot where you are today too, right? So
Oh, yes, it is. I haven't even let myself look at any thermometers. I just know that the moment that I step outside, I am very overwhelmed by the heat. But I will say, being from the Midwest, I have sworn off that I will never ever complain about the heat just because I hate being cold so much more. That's so much more uncomfortable for me. So I've decided that no matter how hot the heat is, I can remark that it's very hot, but I won't complain about it.
That's a good attitude to have. Um, so tell me about you and Terry at Zebrafish. How do you guys make that connection?
Yeah, that was fun. That was just through a webinar where we were attending. I can't even remember the topic name of the webinar. I should have looked that up. But I have the honor and privilege of working with Steph Camilla and Barry through Zebrafish Neuro. So we've tried to come up with a couple of different job titles or positions to describe what I am for them. But for right now, I think we've landed on I'm their neuro PT consult. And it's
awesome.
just an honor and a privilege to work with them. I also get to do some photography for Steph as well. So Steph and I had actually met a few years back, just pre-COVID actually. I was teaching a live course on behalf of another company. She came to attend and we were able to connect. And by that point, I had actually already been like following her, and Theo at the time was her partner in the business. I had been following them since I want to say 2016, if not sooner, on Instagram as well. So that was a very surreal moment for me to make that connection with Steph. And then over the years, we've kept in touch, continue to geek out on all things neuro. And so, of course, I love to be there to support her no matter what and whatever's going on. So that night, it was a webinar. We were chatting, and then I heard Terry mention something about MS, and I like jumped into the chat. Terry, you have MS. Like, what's going on? Tell me what's up. Just because I had had that much experience with people with MS, and had you had mentioned that you had a podcast, so I was like, I'm gonna check you out. I'm gonna listen. Like, what's your contact information? How can I get the the website? So it's just a really neat space to have found y'all. Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate the all the conversations that you have, the information that you're putting out, the life that you're sharing. I think it's really important, and not enough people are doing it. So it's an
Mm,
honor to be here.
thank you. Yeah, Terry and I,
Thank you.
we just thought that we if it would be free therapy. We would just share our story honestly, and hopefully that would connect with some people. Um, and it's been quite a ride, honestly. And we never in a million years did I think we would get to the point where we were having professionals speak with us and such as yourself. So we're grateful that you're here. and we're highlighting the power of social media in all its positive forms that it's supposed to be,
Yes.
um, and making these connections. So thank you for that.
And how COVID has changed us too, right?
Oh yeah,
Because
for
of
sure.
COVID, I'm connecting with so many different people, and
Hmm.
I'm not crediting COVID because it's still not a good thing, but
Yeah, right.
I think the phrase necessity is the mother of invention. I think we had all these different technologies at our fingertips, but just hadn't ever needed to use them in the same
Mhm.
way. So for that, I am grateful too, for just the
Sure.
different ways and exploration of being able to connect in unexpected manners with people that we
Mhm.
otherwise wouldn't have thought about. Yeah.
Absolutely. So in the PT space,
Yes.
let's talk about, my question is, what are some mistakes? I don't know, mistakes is a bad word, but I'm thinking like, what are things that people with MS do that you've seen that you're like, you should probably correct that.
Mhm.
Because we bumble through this trying to figure it all out.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to give credit where credit is due to for people living with MS. It is one of the most, I would say, a challenging endeavor because you don't exactly know what's coming, how fast and intense it's coming, and if it'll go away. It's kind of this up and down ride. I've worked with clients that have been in their wheelchairs in their 20s and then they're up and walking a little bit later in life. And I've had the total reverse where people, it is a gradual decline over time. However, I would say that one major element that is just so helpful, and I don't know if it's harped on enough in the medical and therapy worlds for persons with MS, is the vital importance of exercise and being able to strengthen yourself, knowing how to stretch, knowing your body and understanding its limits and how to listen to it when it's talking back to you. Knowing that fine line between pushing and also just simply needing rest, I think is really important. So one of the first elements that I encourage people with MS to do, just like you said, Nix, in terms of like that kind of feeling like you're bumbling along. Again, different amounts of disability and ability come and dissipate over time. That if you can get a head start on knowing your body and knowing your exercise routine and what feels good for you sooner rather than later, it is going to be so much more valuable later. I also equate it to something like maintenance in life, and just like maintenance in a car. It's better to just keep it running as smoothly as you can as you're going with it, rather
love
than
that.
waiting for something to have a total breakdown.
Uh,
Um, yeah.
so that I do some training Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and it's a little bit. It's not that much. I'm not body lifting or anything, but it's enough so that I can keep doing it for the next 50 years.
Yes.
And it's exactly what you said, maintaining my body, or
Yeah.
and I love your answer, your truthful answer of, you're not like, oh, it'll get better for you guys. You're so truthful. It's a debilitating illness and it doesn't get better in time. It gets worse. You're just so truthful. But we can manage it, we
Oh
can
yeah.
manage the symptoms or whatnot.
Absolutely. One of the first things that a very kind supervisor had informed me when I was first starting to work with persons with MS is that sometimes progress isn't seeing notable, significant leaps and bounds and gains. Now, that being said, in my 6 years of working pretty exclusively with persons with MS, and I still work with persons who have MS now, but just have also diversified a little bit more of my populations as well. Um, During those 6 years, I had not worked with many people, maybe a handful of people that didn't improve. That the vast, vast majority, 95% of people do improve to some degree, some way. They have a better quality of life. They feel better. They feel more confident in managing their energy, their strategies. They feel better about putting together a plan for their exercise and their work. So, truth be told, most often it is the case of you are going to get better. We're not sure how much, and we're not sure how much work it'll take to sustain that. However, just like you said, that maintenance level of activity, and that's, I think, another added tag on. Next, I have like several different components to this question that I'm excited to
That's
share.
okay.
Um, but another tip that I would say that for persons with MS, they get very motivated. Well, and I should say with anyone with a disability. I mean, your life has changed. There's a different status. than what you've previously been used to. And or I'll have plenty of people that are trying to work towards a new goal that they hadn't even bothered or thought of working towards before their disability. And they're just like, I just want to know if I can do it. I was training one gal that wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and that had not
Oh,
occurred to her before her MS diagnosis. And then it happened, and she's like, well, I might as well go climb the mountains before I can't climb them, maybe, if that happens. So all that to be said, some people are making new goals for themselves, trying to discover life in different ways. And I love utilizing that as a motivation to continue exercising and to continue moving, like picking something that's tangible for you that you can work towards, that your therapist, your trainer, your clinician, heck, your accountability partner, you both can at least keep in perspective and in mind the goal that you're working towards. So that usually encourages a more maintaining status and progressive status in exercise.
Mhm.
Additionally, I encourage people to pick something that is sustainable. That even if we have these big, lofty goals, let's just take one step forward right now. And if we can handle that well, then let's take another step forward. Because I find that often, and this doesn't even apply to persons with MS or even disabilities, I think it applies to all humans. If we swallow more than we can chew or take off too big of a goal and are just constantly seen as not reaching the goal or not being able to execute the way that we wanted to, that's a little bit more discouraging. So I encourage people, I'm like, set yourself up for the little wins and like don't be disappointed that they're little. Like celebrate them. Like celebrate every little win
yep.
every day.
And that's so true because a lot of times we MSers look at this insurmountable mountain of things ahead of us and
Mm-hmm.
we say, there's no way I can climb this mountain. But then we have to be reminded
Mm-hmm.
that you have to take the first ever, it's just steps to climb the mountain. You don't leap from the ground to the top. There's a whole list of little things that get you there. We
Yes.
forget that.
Yeah.
She
Uh,
she said something also that if someone, people used to ask me, hey, do you have any advice for someone who just got diagnosed with MS? And
Mm-hmm.
I used to be like, oh, just be aware of your body, take care of yourself. No, you said the best thing. Get a head start. Get a
that's
head
true.
start on whatever you think you need to do. Get a head start now. Because
And
we usually chase it after it starts to get worse. We're like, oh, I should be doing more stretches or whatnot, exercise. And
very true. And we spend so much time early on hearing what we can't do or what we're not able to do. Like there's so much focus and it's factual focus, between you and the clinician. You have to figure out what is and is not right at the moment. But
Mm-hmm.
you're hit with all this negativity right up front because it's like, oh, okay, you have MS. I can't see very well. My arm tingles. It's like negative, negative, negative. But then it gets to a point where someone says, okay, let's turn that and let's see what can we do. Like you said, you got to celebrate it all. We Terry and I talked to an individual, and his big win for the day was he sat up in his bed.
Mm-hmm.
That's his big win. So we're like, yes, you sat up, like great, like yay
Mhm.
for you, and you're so right with that.
Yeah, absolutely. On a little flip side, but very nuanced, and specifically for my populations with MS, I also encourage them um, that we need to rest. That working hard, that working toward goals, that doing a little something, something every day is going to be a good thing. However, it's also really important to listen to your body when it's telling you to rest. And people just at first don't believe me. I ask them to keep a record of how they're feeling, what their energy is throughout the day, how they feel after exercise, how they feel the next day, how they feel over time, maybe even after a month or two of exercising. And usually that brings a little bit more awareness and reflection time. But I'll often hear um, within the MS community, people will say things like, well, I woke up and I was having a good day and I don't know when I'm going to have another good day. So I had to make the most of it. So I went and I mowed the lawn and I did the laundry and I did the grocery shopping and I did this and that and the other thing. And I decided to pick up boxing. And, and I'm like, that was so great. You did that all
Yeah.
in one day? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, how did you feel the next day? And they're like, I couldn't leave the bed. And I said, how did you feel the next day? And they're like, still couldn't leave the bed. I said, all right. I said, so if we're going to run ourselves into the ground, that's not going to really do us any favors. Versus like if we stop to recharge our batteries for a moment and then we could keep going. I'm a really big analogies girl. So let me know if it's like too much.
Go for it.
However,
Keep fun.
I feel like this one really resonates with people is that if you're driving your car and it's starting to get low on gas or it's like starting to sputter, make weird noises, you're not going to say like, no, it's just all in my head. I've just got to keep going. I've got to push through. I want to get to my destination now. Well, your destination is 200 miles away and you're 20 miles to empty. It's like, so if you just keep driving and you don't pull over to fill up the gas tank, yes, is that annoying? Sure. I'm like the queen of efficiency. I love to just get to the place where I'm going. No, I don't want to pull over for 5 minutes at the gas station and somehow have that add on 15 minutes to my
That's
ETA.
so
I
me.
still, yes, right? However, if you don't pull over and take the 5 minutes at the gas station, fill up, and then go on your way, then you're going to get far enough down the road where you're going to break down. You're going to have to call roadside assistance. They are going to have to bring you a gallon of gas and charge you exorbitant amounts of money for it. And then you're going to have to turn around and go back to the very gas station that you just passed,
Dude, that's funny.
right?
That worked. Oh, that works so well.
And
Yo,
so what I tell people and explain it that way, I'm like, I appreciate you challenging yourself. It's so noble. It's excellent. I said, however, it's actually a stronger and braver endeavor to listen to when your body is telling you that it actually needs to rest. You can push through a little discomfort. You can push through a little bit of fatigue. That's fine. That's increasing your capacity. However, when your body is telling you that it needs the rest and needs to just settle down a little bit before it breaks down. I was like, that takes a braver person to listen to that and recognize limits and then allocate in the future and strategize in other ways.
I've noticed with MSers that we typically don't rest until we have to rest.
Mm.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
until
true.
we're forced to rest.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's true.
exactly what you said, like when their bodies are shut down for a couple days,
Yeah.
and that's not good. I get it. But I'm typically like that too. I don't know what it is. I think it's my anxiety. Just like you said, when am I going to get another good day?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
you're totally right. Take it slow strides at a time.
Mhm.
And I
And
think
just
another thing
start
that doesn't
growing.
we don't take into consideration, Terry, is, if we're doing a routine like a basic, like you said, you have 3 times a week you're working out, like what we don't take into consideration is your brain is making new connections or reinforcing connections, which takes energy. So there's actually more energy used to maintain stuff than you think.
Mhm.
So it's not just muscle memory or physical exertion. There's Your brain is constantly reinforcing those connections, which, also makes you more tired.
Exhausting. That's for sure exhausting. I get what you're saying.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And ironically enough, though, doing that exercise, maintaining those connections, again, does rejuvenate them and it keeps you in it and using it for the long haul, which I think is so,
Hmm.
so encouraging. So even if you do feel more exhausted by completing that maintenance routine and maintaining those connections, it's so encouraging that you're like, I know that it's not for waste. It is going to pay off. It just might be a little bit more of like a return in investment down the road. um,
Hmm.
versus
Very
that
true.
immediate
I need to mention this because this is on my mind all the time. So before I was in a chair, I could actually walk, but my walking was difficult. My
Mhm,
legs were tired, fatigued. You know how it is. You've seen it, I'm sure. And I was still doing it, but it was a real struggle. And I've always had a chair. I've had a chair 5 years before I even used it. But why is because I wanted everyone to get normalized to the chair. Because I knew once I sit in it, people are going to say, "Hey, what's up with the chair, Terry?" So I just wanted everyone to get normal with it. Anyway, so my legs were getting weaker and weaker, and
mhm,
but I could still walk until
mhm,
one day I sat in the chair and I said, "Screw it." And I sat in the chair, and of course, you don't use it, you lose it. But
mhm,
I didn't do anything, and it was my mistake. No one told me to do anything. But yeah, sitting in a chair, I lost my leg power, and now it's like at 2%. I can still stand up, but I can't stay standing up. So,
yeah.
just like you said, get a head start, you know, because if I continue to move my legs, because now I do exercises with my legs, but I feel like the nerve damage is way too far to fix it up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a hard distinguishing factor that we can't always give exact answers for.
Yeah.
Honestly, the body is so intricate and beautifully created that even direct imaging on the brain cannot directly reflect the amount of function that someone has. So, when you're talking specifically about nerve damage, maybe inflammation, plaques on the brain, that doesn't necessarily equate to function. I've worked with plenty of people that their MRIs have gotten worse and their function is the same. They don't feel any different for a while. I've also worked with the reverse where there's nothing showing up on the MRI and this person is getting much weaker over time. So there's components within MS, multiple of them that affect movement and ability. One of them is the nerves actually being damaged, the insulation, the myelin sheath being broken down, so the nerves aren't conducting the way that they need to. So that I equate to like if you had the power generating company, which is your brain, and it was sending the power out to different areas of your body. It's like we clipped that power cord. Like it's not even going from the brain to the spinal cord, but then your peripheral cord, which is like from the local area like department and out to your house, like the peripheral nerves, like so that like from the spinal cord to the arm, that's still intact. So it's not necessarily those nerves aren't sending the signals at that time. And so when they aren't sending the signals and telling the muscles, hey, stay toned, stay strong, keep working, then the muscles themselves actually atrophy. So that's like when you get actual less muscle mass, when you get the neurogenic atrophy and the muscles going down. So the way that I explain it for people is continue using everything that you have available to you. However, if you are losing strength, it's not necessarily your fault. It's not necessarily because you stopped trying or stopped walking. At some point in time, we also have to see what is reasonable and what is safe. Because I've had a lot of people come in that aren't safe walking and they're falling and they're breaking bones and they're giving themselves bigger setbacks because they're doing something maybe too much or too long or again, not listening to their bodies. So I wouldn't be too hard on yourself for
Dude,
that.
where were you 5 years ago when I had the biggest guilt? I run on guilt and it
Yeah.
kills me. It kills me because I'm like, did I give up? Because a lot of people say I don't want to give up
Oh
and end
yeah.
up in a wheelchair. And I'm like, that triggers me. I'm like, no, I didn't give up.
Mhm.
Or did I? I don't know.
No,
So
that is
thank
a
you.
huge conversation that I've had a lot in my clinical experience. And I tell people all the time, I was like, you're not someone who just decided to sit down one day and not walk anymore. Like that would happen to me. If you sat me down on the couch for 3, 4 weeks, turned into a couple months, I would not be the same when I got up again because my body would naturally, it's just like you said, Terry, if you're not using it, you're gonna lose it and you have to use it in order to improve it. However, when you're fighting against a disease that is causing some damage over time, that even when you are using it, you're maintaining it to the best of your ability, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it will always stay. So it's not your fault. I want to really encourage people with MS in that if you are doing what you are able to, you're respecting your body's need for rest, you're also pushing into challenging yourself and expanding or maintaining your capacity the best that you can, you are doing the best that you can. This is not the same as someone simply giving up. So I encourage you.
Awesome. I love that answer. And MS Canada uh, has a lot of programs where people can do mini exercises. And
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love it because and when you go to it, you're like, are these exercises? Hey, any movement is good movement. And to be
Mm-hmm.
honest with you, what they do is the same thing I do with my trainer, just maybe minus 10, not as fast, but
Yeah.
I'm a big believer. You keep moving and
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'll tell people all the time
mhm.
exercise is technically optional, movement is not. Obviously, exercise is going to be more beneficial as you're challenging yourself, you're doing strategic, you're doing planning, you're doing the weightlifting, you're doing strengthening. But it also, if you're just continuing to move in your life, do everything that you need to do and working on challenging yourself and you're enjoying it, then by all means do that. Find something that brings you joy and that you enjoy doing, and then it'll make it easier for you to continue doing it.
And
The
nobody
point
wants to talk about exercise. Nobody
no.
wants to say that word,
Well,
you
we
know.
also we also
Yeah.
frame it a little bit more in a challenging way. But I'll sit down and tell people, I said, actually, the point of exercise is not to get better at exercise, unless you're competing in a very specific task that your job is to lift the heaviest dumbbell, barbell, or perform a certain stunt. Excellent. Let's keep doing that. Yes, that's what that is. The point of exercise is to literally get better at that thing. However, for the most part, and honestly, even for those people, exercising is actually a way to get better at life. So when we view that as a tool to be able to do what we want for as long as we're able to, and hopefully also as long as we want to, hopefully those two things add up, but at least as long as we're able. I find that that's much more satisfying, and that's a better way to think about it. Like, I don't know. I personally am not motivated to get up and go to the gym every single day and be like, oh yeah, I just can't wait to exercise. No, no, no. I exercise because I want to go on the next camping trip with my family and be able to hike the 15 miles that we need to that day. I want to exercise so that I can go out and I can teach Pilates
Whoa,
clients and make a living for
15 miles.
myself.
Relax.
Yes, we did that on our last trip and it was a blast, but I realized that I want to keep up that level of intensity in my training to be able to do that again if and
Okay.
as needed.
Okay. And
Yeah.
one question I had for you, by the way, this is so out of, Dr. Tay, do you go by Dr. Tay? Because
Yeah,
you said that a couple.
I will answer to both. So
Okay.
my given name
Okay.
is Taylor. I grew up in the Midwest where we all really take a lot of joy in giving each other nicknames, and so I just grew up with the nickname of Tay, Tay
Okay.
Tay. And I find that allows for a little bit faster rapport to be built and familiarity within the clinic, and people are able to just call me Tay.
I mean, Dr. Tay?
That I will be honest. The only people who actually call me Dr. Tay are the students that I help to teach at Mercer University in the PT program. So
Okay.
yes, please feel free. You can call me Tay. I do have a clinical doctorate degree of physical therapy. I have a license to practice PT, but we usually go by our first names. It makes it easy. Doctor is
Yeah.
for my mail. When my mail arrives, that says doctor.
Gotcha. The bills say doctor only.
Yeah.
Or when you make a reservation. Anyway, you have more credentials than just being a doctor of physical therapy.
Yes.
I saw
Yep.
you have much more than just that, even though to people, doctor is what they'll gravitate towards.
hmm
Hmm.
But
Um,
Very
it's
true.
it's been a lot of fun. While I was in PT school, learned about Pilates as a modality and as a type of exercise. And I found that for me, it was just so helpful and beneficial for my own body that I wanted to become an instructor. So I incorporate that into my regular PT practice and then also teach Pilates as its own entity separately in the clinic and in homes with people. I also had the privilege of studying for the neuroclinical specialist examination. So within the PT world, PTs are considered generalists. We can work with any population, get on the job experience and training, and kind of apprentice under other more experienced PTs. And or you can also study and sit for a board certification in different areas of specialty. So I had chosen neurological clinical specialist.
This
And
is this is
what made you gravitate towards MS specifically? Was there a connection there?
There is no history of familial or friend connection. To be completely honest, I had been doing a lot of Pilates and physical therapy in Miami. I had gone to school at University of Miami, and they will just forever have the softest spot in my heart. I just really appreciate my education through them and the connections down there. Incredible. I was working down there for several clinics in Pilates and orthopedics, and also had gotten the opportunity to work with some patients who had neurological conditions. And about 2 years into my practice, after having done a lot of studying and continuing education and working with different populations, I thought, I feel really confident in quite a few skill sets. However, I really want to utilize my skill sets and leverage my experience to help people kind of just come back to themselves again. As much as I love helping people get out of pain, helping them refine and get to higher levels of function, there was something else about me that just said that I wanted to work with populations where they're just not even feeling at home in their own bodies, whether it's something that's a big traumatic event that causes like a brain injury or a spinal cord, or if it's something that's a more gradual, insidious little traumas that add up over time, even internally, like MS. So once I had decided that I was more curious about working with persons with neurological conditions, I just kind of started Googling, looking up different areas and opportunities to work, and had found an area that I really resonated with, and it was closer to family. So I applied, and they hired me. I was completely unqualified to work with neurological populations, but I had seen that they had a reformer within the clinic. And so that piqued my interest. I said, oh my gosh, if I could use my Pilates background in addition to my PT to then also help persons with neurological conditions. I was like, I think that that would be like an apex moment. So I'd applied for that clinic and had the opportunity. So before that, I honestly really didn't know much about working with persons with MS prior to that. It looks like we might have lost Nix. How's this going, Derek?
It's okay. It's okay. There's a storm there. I was given a heads up about that. That's
Okay.
fine. You know what I really appreciate about you is that you're still enhancing your skills.
Mm,
Like, okay, you went to school, you finished, you still enhance. And I love
mhm,
that. And zebra fish taught me that I
mhm,
went to my therapist, my physio, and I said, hey, you should, and they said, yeah, people should keep enhancing their skills,
mhm,
learn more and more. And so I went up to them like, hey, did you ever hear about this? Do you want to, learn about what they're doing? They
mhm.
have a course you can sign up, and
Yeah.
it was a little, the attitude was there like, oh, we're fine, we got what we need. And it's like, no, you should be enhancing your skills, you should learn what's out there. And so
Oh,
I
yeah.
really appreciate that, that's what you've taken your time to do.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Terry. I really appreciate
Yeah,
that. I
yeah.
will say in the PT world, there are so many different topics and courses to go to and learn about.
Hmm.
It's very exciting and very open, especially for someone who's a learner like
Yeah,
myself. I'm just always
yeah,
so curious to learn more, to know more, and then to be also able to leverage that knowledge and those skills to help other
yeah.
people. I think is very satisfying in my life. So I've been very blessed with a lot of amazing opportunities to keep learning and growing.
Awesome. And I can't wait to see what you're doing with
Yeah,
Steph
thank you.
and Barry. Yeah, that's right.
It's been such a fun ride so far. I'm looking forward to future shenanigans.
I enjoyed listening to her lecture for those
Mhm.
2 days. It was great. And
Yeah.
they made me do some demonstrations, and I'm like, wow, it's that simple. How come no one has ever done this to me back
Mm,
home? And, so
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, Steph is wonderful at just observing and just getting down to the details and making connections and then being able to process that and teach it as well. So that's a huge part of that course in her work. It's just profound. On the other hand, too, and this is something that she and I have talked about before as well, is some of the limitations that we feel within the traditional clinical models, and that even that I've experienced myself, and she and I have talked about too, are sometimes when you're able to work really long term with some clients, you're able to take the time. You're able to get into more of the nuances, see the smaller movements, make those connections, practice, repeat, trial, error. And it's because you're not as pressed for time all of the time. Granted, that still happens in the wellness and fitness worlds or even longer term therapy. Absolutely, we still encounter those limitations. However, it just seems to be a little bit more common in the traditional medical models where we might be limited by insurance at the number of visits that we have. That you're right, we don't get to go over those more nuanced um, foundational movements sometimes, or maybe we do, but we go over it pretty quickly because there are other things that are such high priority. And I will mention that's been something that I've experienced before, that I'll see someone, I'm like, I could work with this person for years and I know all of the nuanced things that I would love to do with them. However, they are only able to afford at the moment about 5 sessions with me, and their insurance is putting on the brakes otherwise. So I don't get to focus on the nuances and I don't get to focus on some of the more refining and polishing moments. I have to figure out, how do I train this person to get back up from the floor or to keep them safe? Or, we have to go through a home exercise program 2 or 3 times while we're together to make sure that they can maintain it and do that for the next 6 months before they come back to see me again. Things of that nature. So I also want to acknowledge clinicians in that too, is that sometimes we aren't able to operate maybe at a level and of the nuance that we prefer and we know that we're capable of. And it's simply that we're doing the best with what we have.
mhm.
And I will say, especially in those situations, I've been so grateful to work with persons with MS because y'all know all about I just can work with what I have. And I've just got to have a lot more grace and a lot more flexibility for the things that I can't do. And I'm going to understand if we can't get everything done all the time because that's literally my life. So when I'll sit down and explain to people like that, like, hey, I want to get into more depth, but we at least have to start with the broad picture here and see where it gets us. I've been very thankful for the grace in the past as a clinician.
It makes me sad when someone can only say they can only afford and they don't get insurance coverage and they
Mhm.
can only afford, say, 5 sessions with you. Do you know? Because then at that point you're like, okay, what can I do in these 5 sessions to get the most out of it? That's,
Yes,
and I know a lot of
absolutely.
people too that they do what they have to do, physiotherapy, whatever they have to do, but because it's covered. And
Mhm.
if it wasn't covered, they would not take any interest in it. Or
Mhm.
once the coverage is finished, they stop, you know.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. So
um,
those limitations can be a barrier too, that it's really not about them.
yeah,
It's not the
totally.
system that they're within or the restraints that some of the clinicians have. So yeah, absolutely. If we're limited by that, then we just go into high power priority mode. We say, all right,
Yeah,
well, we had these
yeah.
10 goals. Let's narrow it down. What's the most important? And we'll just start knocking them down and we'll get through as much as well as we can in the amount of time and the resources that we have.
And it's not overnight. People think like I go to one appointment, oh, I'm going to get healed or I'm going to feel so much better. It's not
Yes.
like that. I
Oh,
know.
that I feel like this is a full circle moment, bringing us back to the beginning when we're talking about just the idea of exercise and for people with MS is that just as slow and gradual of a process as changes in your function can be when declining, it's the same way when they're inclining and progressing. It's going to be slower than probably what we want. But if we're looking at it over the span of from the beginning of therapy or from the beginning of working with someone until the end, that difference is still very profound. So then just kind of utilizing that to encourage us to have the endurance to do each session, to do each little bit more and more, knowing that we're going to have a big difference from beginning to end.
Be Pilates. Do you ever do Pilates online on Zoom or is it all local?
Yeah, I have before, and it's something that I haven't started up again recently, but I'm always open to it. I love doing that. I actually, uh, funny enough, when we were talking about COVID and it bringing different online resources, I had actually done an online Pilates course at the beginning of COVID to be able to teach people and just do public online,
Yeah.
just movement. Yeah.
I can't, like, I mean, Nick is an ambassador for the society, MS Society, as
Yeah.
well as I am in MS Canada, but they should be approaching you and seeing what can be done. I mean,
Actually, a few years ago, my coworker Annika and I both did a presentation for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and
cool.
I think it's on YouTube. I think you could actually Google my name and
Oh,
find
look for
it.
that for sure.
I think the title was something like "Come Play with Us."
Okay.
Because again, that kind of that stigma and stipulation around exercise, we wanted to
Uh-huh.
take that away and just think about, hey, what if you were moving your body and you were just thinking about it as fun or as play? Would that make it a little bit easier? So we did a little bit of history of yoga and Pilates in that class, and then at the very end led through a little movement experience where we had people, I want to say that it was from a seated level of exercise. So really pretty much anyone should be able to incorporate at least a little something from the class and hopefully enjoy a little bit of movement from that.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna go check out that YouTube video for sure. I'm gonna find it. But yeah, I just can't believe I haven't seen anything from MS Canada or MS Society about Pilates because I hear about it all the time. It's never demonstrated online.
Yeah, I think because of at times the modifications that need to be done, I think some Pilates instructors don't feel quite as confident
Yeah.
in modifying for patients with neurological conditions, but in all reality, it's very accessible. It's a wonderful modality, and the equipment is just so versatile. I can use it on all sorts of levels, from professional athletes all the way to someone who has a ton of restrictions following a surgery or limitations, or just temporary kind of coming out of a neurological situation or condition where they're trying to get back and improve some level of function. You can modify it as easily or as difficult as you need.
Okay. Okay. When's the first time you heard about MS? Did you know what MS was when you heard about it?
Oh my
Did
goodness. Of course, we learned about it in school.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it something that okay, I mean, how much do you learn about MS in school? Do they actually say, "Oh, and another illness you need to know about"?
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
do
Yeah.
they?
They
Okay,
do
I'm
a
an
really
idiot.
thorough job. That is something that I very much appreciate about being at that we have a little bit more time because of it being a doctorate program and level
Yeah.
course. They had extended the time of instruction and got to delve a little bit more deep into some of the topics.
Okay.
And
Cool.
we had several different neurological oriented courses, whether it was assessing neurological conditions, whether it was like kind of recommendations of imaging and kind of how to be an advocate alongside of your patients with neurological conditions
Awesome.
for what they needed to do to be tested and how to interpret that or how to interact with doctors and ask for the imaging or interpret it or see it, etc. And then also, of course, on the rehab side, a lot of different strategies for working with persons with neurological conditions. So within that, we would definitely have what we call like pathology overviews, where we're doing in-depth dives into different pathologies. And MS was definitely a big topic. And I know that it's continued to grow as well.
Awesome. Do you know how to read MRIs? I know it's a silly question. You're probably like, what are you talking about? It's
No, I we did have a radiology class and imaging class where we
okay.
were reading MRIs pretty regularly and being tested on them. So that was always really fun to me as far as the investigator type personality, as I really wanted to see and know and recognize the structures.
Yeah.
That being said, I've been very fortunate in my life to have doctors that have great interpretation of MRIs. So I do see the imaging. I'll have patients bring it in and I'll look over it for sure. But because I'm not a radiologist, I'm going to rely on their interpretation and their expertise. But it is fun to get to see. I do enjoy. I'm also a photographer, so
Yeah.
imaging to me in all forms is
Yeah.
wildly entertaining, and I love seeing the details in it.
Awesome. Well, I have one here. If you can just see it and let me. No, I'm just joking.
Definitely.
Just, I'm joking. I don't have it. Don't worry.
That's all right. If we have multiple choice, I think I could get it.
No, I'm just kidding. It's funny because everyone's like, "Did you get your MRI?" And I'm always like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "You can go ask for your MRI, request it." I'm like,
Yeah, what am
what
I
do you
gonna
want?"
do? What am I gonna do with that? I don't know. Probably frame it, make it into a placemat. I don't know, Terry. Figure something out.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I'm so happy that you even wanted to come here. I hope Nick's okay. Let's
Yeah,
give
I do
little
too.
positive vibes to Nick that
Yes, please.
he's not drowning in the storm. And yeah, I know he's stressing out right now. He's like, "Oh my God, it's okay."
Yeah, do you need to check any messages from him or anything? Check in, make
I
sure.
have my phone right here. No, he's maybe he has a power out. That's what I'm thinking. He told me right before it happened. Power went out. Actually, I got a message just now. Power went out. Have fun finishing the show. Thanks, buddy. I'm
Well,
so
and
glad it's you. I'm very
I
comfortable with you, so it's okay.
good. Terry, that is a high compliment. I really pride myself on making sure that people feel good and at peace when they're around me. So thank you. That's a high compliment. And I hope that we did Nick's proud. He's gonna have to review this and let us know if we can go live with it or if we just have to scrap the whole thing.
No, not even. Are you kidding me? I so appreciate you even considering coming today. So,
Oh, thank you
like,
very much for the
even
invitation.
thank you. Awesome. Do you have any shout outs you want to give to anybody? I don't know. I usually we do this to people who get support because they're living with MS. We're like, do you want to
Ah,
give a shout out to anyone that has supported you? But coming from your perspective, is there anyone you wanted to give a shout out to?
oh my goodness. I
I'm
feel like
putting you
there's
on the spot. Yeah,
how many
putting
more hours do we have? I have I am just obviously very thankful to my family. They have supported me through all of my educational endeavors, career transitions. I mean, just absolutely impeccable. I know that any member of my family is only a phone call away at any given moment. Um, I'm really appreciative of all of my coworkers over the years. And well, let's first of all give credit where credit is due to very origin stories. Professors in college, thank you to everyone at University of Miami. You did an exceptional job educating us and instilling in us the passion of being creative and loving people well, while also helping them to get better. Then going out into the world, all the coworkers that I worked with from the very beginning, the bosses and the supervisors that had faith in me, that understood that they could teach me the skills that I didn't have and believed enough in me and my character and personality that I could be molded into some sort of clinician that they would be able to recognize as being good enough to be in their clinic. And definitely a huge shout out to all of my clients and patients over the years. I feel at this point as though it's a little cliche to say, however, I've never seen it as more true. I feel like I learn more from my clients and my patients every day working with them. than I've ever learned otherwise. And that's not to say that I haven't had exceptional teachers. They were. And it's not to say that I wasn't trying my best to learn. It's just remarkable the amount of information that is able to be exchanged and the nuances and just the subtleties that we're able to learn just from having these open and honest conversations and working together over the years. So the endurance, the impatient, the patience that that takes. I'm just so humbled to have been entrusted with any sort of part of anyone's health journey, that I hope that I can continue making people proud. And I just have to give a shout out for everyone who's shared with me and helped me learn and grow. I feel like clients past and present are just continuing to pay it forward in the future. Like they're helping to make me a better clinician to help other people better.
You are so humble and
Thank you.
genuine and so approachable, just so you know.
Thank
So
you. Thank you. I
I
really
wish
appreciate that.
if you were in the area, if you had your own clinic, I definitely would have been
Oh,
gravitating towards you. And I'm not saying that just to like,
no.
blow
No,
you up or anything.
no, I believe you. I tell people the same thing. I said if I say something kind, it's because I'm telling the truth. I was like, there are no time for lies here. So, thank you, Terry. No, I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate the way that you've been able to facilitate conversation and add to it today. And I'm just so thankful that we're able to put this out there for other persons with invisible disabilities and MS, and just keep doing good in the world. This
You're
is
awesome.
incredibly humbling. I mean, you have a difficult enough journey to navigate with everything that you have going on, and you've taken time out of your life. You and Nix have both taken time out of your life to make sure that you're sacrificing a part of it to make sure that you're sharing and encouraging with others. So it's just as
Thank
much
you.
a humble honor for me to be here.
You're awesome. Thank you. I
Thank
don't want
you.
to take any more of your time, but I will
Oh,
bother you in the future.
no
I
bother,
definitely will.
please. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Yes, anytime. You let me know what topic it's going to be, and I will be there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll talk
Thank
soon.
you.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Bye, Nick.
Bye, Nix.
So check us out at 40belowzero.com. That's 4 letter T below zero.com. Or feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Our email address is info@40belowzero.com. Our personal Instagram account are, for Nix, it's Nix_V713. Or for Terry, it's What's_MS. Awesome. Looking forward to hearing from you guys. We'll talk soon.